All right, and we are back with BCB Live, the safest station in the nation. Drive safe, Dave. Double check, Dale. And we have here in studio, virtually, Mark Tinney with JOBehaviors. How you doing, Mark?
I'm doing well, thank you. Thanks for
You know what? Thank you very much for getting up early this morning. I know it's a little bit earlier in your neck of the woods than it is in ours, but is the sun even up yet?
No.
That's good enough for me because I'm looking right behind you and I don't see the sun up out of the window. But all right, Mark, you're with JOBehaviors, Inc. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your company?
So JOBehaviors, we specialize in very job-specific assessments that are based on a job analysis with proven top performers in specific job categories. So I've been at this about 30 years or so, and we have a variety of assessments that range from child care to banking to construction to transportation, among many others, professional sports. And essentially what our mission is to help our clients really consistently and objectively identify top talent in the applicant pool. And it usually starts, all of our assessments start with a very intensive job analysis with proven top performers. So we would contend that if you want to know what makes top performers tick, you ought to sit down and talk with them, and that's what we do. And we then fashion assessments that help our clients go into the candidate pool again and identify candidates that are behaviorally in alignment with proven top performers. So in the transportation industry, we have a fairly major focus, and we have a Class A CDL driver assessment, delivery driver, diesel technician, customer service, freight handler, and operations manager. So we try to cover the breadth of the industry, and that's just kind of the Reader's Digest version, if you will.
Yeah, and you talk about these assessments, and you know I've filled out a personality assessment before. I guess
I would love to read that, by the way.
Did you come out as an extrovert? I'm just curious.
Yes, but no, I came out as shy and bashful and not willing to open up, but. No, you have to fill one out in the military. You have to fill one out. They make you fill different ones out. How does yours differ from like a normal personality behavioral assessment?
Oh, that's a good question. So historically, personality profiles have been used for a variety of reasons, and to be very fair, they are extremely accurate in identifying personality type. Where we sort of part ways is that what we find is a real differentiating factor between people who are strong match and high performers in a given job category and those that maybe would have been better suited to another career is not necessarily personality, which is maybe a surprise to some, but it really comes down to behavior. If you sit down with a group of top performers, and I've been in rooms with a top-performing group of school custodians, NFL football players, and over-the-road Class A CDL truck drivers. The first thing you're struck by is just about every personality type under the sun is represented within that group of top performers.
I get it.
So
yeah, that makes
clearly
sense.
there's something else going on. And what we contend is that it's really the behaviors that they hold in common. So even though you may find that there are a wide variety of personality types there, but they're all there because they're in the top 5% of their field, what you'll hear all the time is, oh, you think that's important. Oh, I do the same thing. So it's they hold the same behaviors important in performing that job, even though they may not have identical personality types. I always give an example in trucking. I know because sometimes I say, well, we've got team drivers, we want them to get along, and so maybe we'll do a personality profile. We would contend again that if you've got two individuals, maybe diametrically opposed personality-wise, but they both are somebody who's going to interact with dispatch professionally, they're going to make sure the load's tied down properly or loaded properly, they're going to be mindful of their fuel, et cetera, that they're more likely to get the end of that trip in one piece than two guys that may be more likely to sit down and have a beer. We're more concerned about them doing the job in a similar fashion and holding the same things important to doing the job. If that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And why don't you tell me, why don't we jump right into how it applies to, I know you were talking about our industry, but let's talk about the people that you work with now. What are some of your successes and stories that maybe go along with how this is applied and how it works?
Okay. So number one, usually, and I'm sure you guys are very familiar with this, recruiters in trucking have a tough job, and they're usually given a directive, not always given the tools to complete the mission, shall we say. So
absolutely. It's tough. Yes,
so
absolutely.
With an assessment like this, typically our clients, the way that it works is we set them up with an account with a link to these assessments. Those can be placed anywhere that they're making contact with the candidate. So it can be emailed to them, it could be embedded into their web postings, etc. We recommend administering this as close to the front of the process as possible. Because every word in the assessment is coming out of a job analysis.
Right.
It's predictive, and you can sort of think of it as the candidate earning the right to take up your time as an organization. So, oddly enough, experience in and of itself is not the greatest determiner of success. So you may have someone who is, 5, 6, 10 years, who may be technically competent, but isn't necessarily bringing those other behaviors for customer service, fuel mileage, etc. So in a counterintuitive sense, we can actually open up the candidate pool to folks that may be on the bubble experience-wise, or maybe they had worked one too many jobs. I always say, well, maybe they work for maybe not the greatest carrier. So should we just dismiss that person in a
agree 100%
driver shortage environment?
Yeah.
And also, we want to put the objective, predictive cart before the subjective and less predictive horse, so to speak, right? So we want to have something that's objective, laser focused on the job, that's predictive as a first step. Takes about 10 minutes to complete for the candidate. Results are instant, so they come right back. And we have hundreds of thousands, close to 500,000 in our database. The way the scores come back is it's a T distribution, and we translate that into a straightforward 1 through 5 star. So 1 and 2 stars represent the bottom 50th percentile of the candidate pool. 3, 4s, and 5s represent the top 50th percentile. The goal over time is to get as much of your driver force as you have natural attrition moved into that top 50th percentile. And when you do that, some of the just most recent feedback we've gotten from clients that have used this for since about 2018 was one, and then a little bit further back with another. But what they're reporting, even in a difficult environment, that they're growing 18% a year. They've had 2 consecutive years of the best record for safety cost as a percentage of revenue. Their turnover's been cut in half. And I don't want to just pass over that. That's, as you know, depending on who you talk to, they might tell you it's 10,000 or as high as 20,000 to replace a driver. So
it is. If
you've got 100 drivers or 1,000 drivers or 10,000, and you can cut turnover by 50%, there's real dollars associated with that we would say makes you even more competitive to be an employer of choice. You can take some of those savings and either kick it back into signing bonuses, or maybe look and say, well, we're going to do 3 or 4 or 5% higher pay than our competitors, but we're going to stand back, assess, and screening candidates that are worthy of that increase in pay or benefits or whatever you're offering.
So Mark, and just as you're talking about it, you're basically talking about it, and go a little bit more, but you're talking about making money at the point of hiring somebody, or making more profit just when you walk out and you hire somebody, because you've already, it's not just a resume anymore, right? You've got almost a data analysis that you can go by, correct?
Exactly. We would call it behavioral analysis. You're exactly right. In fact, there's probably no other industry with more at risk on so many levels at the point of hire. You guys probably know that as well as anybody.
Yep.
Safety is a big part of it. The bedrock of our approach, oddly enough, is not just turnover. Top performers in any job category are not just more productive, they're magnitudes more productive than their below average counterparts. So this is really about identifying people that will perform at a high level, and then it's just sort of a nice consequence of doing a better job of hiring that you see turnover rates tend to come down fairly dramatically.
Hey, Mark?
Of course, yeah, go ahead.
Hey, I'm sorry. So does your assessment equate to safety? I mean, how does safety play into that through your assessment?
So safety permeates the assessment, but it's not because we put it in there. In other words, when you sit down with a group of top performers and you do a job analysis, and again, we'll generate close to 500 behaviors that make up a job, and Class A CDL driver was no exception. Safety is just the way those drivers think. And
wow.
I'll just give you an example, and these are just some random behaviors that actually were rated in the top 10% of those 500 behaviors. But and again, this is not me speaking. This is coming out of the mouths of drivers, and this is the way top drivers think about their job. Acts as an effective representative for the employer. Maintains self-control in difficult situations. Stays patient at all times. Comes to work well rested. Works well under pressure. Maintains focus and attention even in good driving conditions. Stays focused on driving at all times. Looks ahead and anticipates problems and hazards. Stays self-motivated. Takes responsibility for tractor trailer cargo. I won't go on, but you get the idea. It's
you're hired. Yeah. Are you checking
can
all
all-
these boxes because you're hired? If you are, thank you. You can go
Exactly.
ahead and send that right on in.
Wow. Yeah, that's. I mean, when he talks about that, the words that they're using is just words we talk about safety. The focus and the attention to detail, the big picture. Just great stuff. Wow.
Yeah, and as it applies to safety, that's what we're about here. We're about safety, and when you're talking about the top performers, I guess you said it in a nutshell. You can't get away. It's there. It's embedded in what they do. It's embedded in how they work, and it's fantastic is how they do that. So how are the companies, how are your relationship with the companies or the carriers or not only the carriers, but any job industry, how are they coming to you to get that information?
Well, they visit our website, JOBehaviors.com with 1B, and they can just contact us and get the information. And essentially, we can then, usually within 24 hours, get somebody set up. It's not like a sometimes people go through a computer conversion or something, and it's nothing like that. We can literally, once someone is set up, literally within 10 minutes, as long as they can get that link in front of a candidate, they're off to the races.
As you mentioned that, and as we talk about it, what you're talking about is not necessarily the driver itself, but their behaviors, whether or not they've been at this 6 months or whether they've been at this 5 years or whether they've been at this 20 years. You're talking about behaviors. And the reason I like this, let's talk about women coming into the industry who may have had some apprehension of whether or not they fit in. How is this developed for women in the industry? How does this work for them? Or how give me some feed on this, on women coming in taking your assessment.
Okay, this is an interesting area. First of all, it just comes down to information. I mean, as you know, not everybody has an in-depth knowledge of the industry. So anybody who completes this assessment, it's almost like they're sitting down with a group of 10 top drivers and having a conversation. So when they complete it, they're actually going to have a much deeper understanding of what the job is about, regardless of their score.
Wow.
So recently, I think you had Dave Dine on recently, but just as an example, he's running, I think one of the most interesting projects out there. We're looking at high school folks.
Incredible application in alternative ways to introduce the industry to young people out there in California. Fantastic individual, and you know what? More than that, I'm talking about motivated and excited to do it. Incredible individual. But yeah, go ahead. I don't want to mean to deter from that.
No, he's a great guy, and we're really proud to be working with him. He did something real interesting, which is he said, well, just like you said, well, behavior, does that maybe, is that something that we can start to look at even at as they're starting to look at career opportunities? And so he ended up assessing or administering the assessment. Again, these are young people, but he assessed his entire 11th grade class for enrollment into his class the following year as a senior. Well, he called me afterwards, and he was just as excited as could be because he had a 400% increase in enrollment of young women. And
Wow.
so we took note of that, and I don't have any deep insight, except I do believe that maybe there are two things. One, just the information so they could see what the job is about. And secondly, as a young person, when you're able to have some confirmation that a path is opening up for you, and you've got some confirmation that this may be something that you could have some success at, I think that just helps with the motivation, and it seemed to be something that was real meaningful to those young women, and he's since said that some of those young women have actually been at the top of his class. So that's something, gosh, it seems like in a driver shortage, there's an opportunity there.
So tell me, I know you got some big news with Wisconsin. Tell me what's going on.
Well, so we've just, there's a gentleman there, Mike Rominski, who we've worked with in the past in the industry. Well, he's since moved on working with Wisconsin Department of Workforce Services. And he had used us.
That's big.
In the past, either both hire experienced and non-experienced going into to driver training programs. And that's something that increasingly we're getting more and more interest in carriers that are developing their own talent. The state of Wisconsin is heavily involved in that, and so we've just been, We've been brought on to assess candidates that will go through state-funded training. And again, we've had a lot of experience with that. We've worked with the state of Arkansas in the past and other states, and the outcomes are pretty remarkable. I mean, we've had situations where these are new people to the industry that with 75% retention after 3 years.
Wow.
And it's a small fraction of that in the past. So anyway, we're excited to be working with the state of Wisconsin on this, and we think it has an opportunity to go much wider.
So, and I'm just going to ask you real quick before, where are you headed with this? Because it sounds like you're on the state level. You ready to go national? Is that what you're telling me? Where are we headed?
Well, we work with carriers all over the country. In fact, we work with clients around the world. But yeah, I think there's a model. I think Wisconsin is probably one of the more forward-looking workforce sites. In fact, it's not only just for long-term Wisconsin residents, but they have a fairly large refugee population, and they're excited to utilize this to help direct. There's limited resources, so if someone's not a good match, then we can say, well, maybe you might want to try the construction industry or some other industry before we invest a lot of money, because obviously there's a lot of resources that it takes to get somebody to full productivity as a driver. So anyway, they're looking at both assessing refugees as well as long-term Wisconsin residents.
So for the carrier right now, and we have a few more minutes, but for the carrier, this is an opportunity. These assessments and this pool of yours, of a large pool of yours, offers a building genuine talent and long-term sustainability of who you're going after, right? I mean, that's really what we're talking about here. We're talking about not going out and just waiting until they step on your doorstep, but actually going and already pre-interviewed. So kind of tell me how a carrier can change the way it thinks really quickly on and going forward in how it hires.
Well, I think if you really want to make a change, you got to take a look at what you're doing and is it working. If you're happy with it, fine. If not, we would contend that if you really want to take this on and you really want to have some results, go to the people who do the job, do it well, do the analysis, which we've done. And now the goal is to get as many of your current drivers. If you have 100 drivers, let's just use a base of 100 drivers. Okay. You probably have 50 that are pretty darn good. You probably have another 50 that are cycling through and with all of the issues, either the job's not right for them or there's safety issues, et cetera. The goal going forward is to replicate the behavioral approach of your top 50th percentile, if you have in your mind's eye the, let's say your top 10 drivers, what you want to do as you go forward is have an assessment up front, keep it objective, keep it predictive, keep it consistent, and identify individuals. And by the way, with assessments like this, you may have individuals who are not the best at interviewing. They may not have the most experience, et cetera. So we're going to uncover some hidden opportunities here, and we're not going to simply pass over people because we sort of have our personal biases. And so at the end of the day, we want to help all of our clients move their entire workforce, their entire driver force into that upper 50th percentile, those that are as good as their current best. And that's certainly possible. There are millions of drivers out there. If you've got 100 drivers, if you've got 1,000, you need 1,000 of the best, or you need 100 of the best. A little more attention at the front end can just pay off huge dividends.
I really like the idea, and when you were talking about it, that the personalities may be as diverse as the people that are in the room, but they all are in the top 5% of who you want to drive. I really never really looked at it like that. I never thought of it like that, it's not one personality that supersedes another in a skill level like this. It's really in the behavior. And
right.
I find that interesting, fascinating, and I think it's wonderful that you're looking at it like that. And I'll tell you what, if you want to, you can reach out to Mark Tinney at JOBehaviors, right? Is it JOBehaviors.com?
That's correct, with one B.
One B, JOBE, right? JOBehaviors, all just one B, JOBehaviors.com. Mark, is that the best way to reach you from the website?
Yeah, that's the best. We also have 253-857-5687 is the direct line.
All right, nice, fantastic. All right, Mark, we ask every one of our guests before they leave, before they get out of here, we ask that they state their name, who they're with, and that you're watching BCB Live, the safest station in the nation. Can you do that for us?
I'll do my best. This is Mark Tinney with JOBehaviors, and you're watching BCB Live, the safest station in the nation.
There you go. Thanks, Mark. We appreciate it. Hey, man, great stuff. We're going to have you back on soon at some point here in the near future to talk a little bit more about some of this going on. We do appreciate you. Have a great day.
I appreciate it. And the sun is coming up now, so thank you.
Yeah, we got you up for that. Go get a cup of coffee.
Have a good weekend.
You too. Bye now. Man, Mark, great stuff. Neat stuff.